As college students, education is very important to us, and here to talk about education with us is Miss Lindsay Olson.
Hi.
Lindsay, what gives you, what is your experience in education?
Well, I'm credible in education. I'm an early childhood education major. This is my 5th semester at Ball State, and I'm doing my practicum experience right now with a class of 2-year-olds.
That's awesome.
Education is extremely important to this country right now and to the world, but specifically in this country. In my personal opinion, I think it's vital that we really invest in education over the next decade, just because it's so important. If we want to continue to see this country thrive, we have to make sure we have an educated workforce, that we have strong education, that people can continue to innovate, and the only way they are going to know how to do that is if they have strong public schooling behind them. A lot of issues surrounding education as a whole, but specifically I know big ones are issues with teacher tenure, teacher pay, private schooling versus public schooling, and I guess I'll start with teacher tenure. I understand the reasoning behind it. On a collegiate level, I think it's a good thing, but when we get into elementary years and high school years, I don't necessarily know if it's the best thing. I don't want to, I guess I'll be blunt, and I hope this doesn't come across as being too arrogant, but I think that a lot of times teacher tenure can sort of create too much of a cushion for teachers, and it doesn't allow them to continue to strive to be the best they can be. It seems like the younger teachers who are just starting out always really have good ideas. They really challenge their students, create a wonderful atmosphere in the classroom, whereas the teachers that have been there for a while, though they provide experience in their teaching, they tend to not be as motivated as what the younger teachers are. Do you guys think teacher tenure is the reasoning behind that?
Well, I think it's definitely part of the reason, and then the other part is I feel like they probably kind of lose track of new and innovative ideas on ways to teach, because they've done the same things for so many years, and maybe they forget what are new things, because I mean at a certain point you don't have to get more schooling necessarily. Mm-hmm. So then I feel like at that point they may lose some ideas on what they can do in the classroom, so they just stick with their old ways. What do you think?
The deal with tenure, even if a teacher is forced to keep taking classes and keep going for higher education, it doesn't mean that he or she has to apply it in their classroom. And it can be a real issue. In many states, it's a big issue that teachers with tenure don't necessarily try as hard. That's a big thing right now. There's several documentaries out on that, and it's becoming an even larger issue with the struggling job field with education. Obviously, in Indiana, it's very difficult to get a teaching job right now. The teaching field is saturated with teachers, especially saturated with teachers with tenure. And it can be a big issue, like I said, if they don't want to use the new and innovative ways, like Mary Beth brought up, of teaching. You know, there's so many new technologies, smart boards, and, you know, some teachers with tenure don't even know how to use a PowerPoint, and that's a big problem. Some people are still teaching with overheads, which can be totally effective. However, it doesn't necessarily reach every child's learning style. And I think that that is the big thing. A really important thing with education is teaching to the child and not teaching to a test.
So do you think the solution, I mean, we want to see teachers get paid. In my opinion, They should be paid more.
Sure.
Do you think merit-based pay is the way to go, where teachers get paid based on performance?
It's a very slippery slope. It depends on what kind of merit you're talking about, whether or not it's effective. In some areas of our country, high-stakes testing are not effective. In most areas of our country, high-stakes testing are not effective. You know, testing children on stuff that doesn't seem to apply to them at that moment is not a good way to do it. A lot of children, since we start high stakes testing so young, a lot of children develop test anxiety, and that can cause real problems for merit-based pay. There can be big gaps. The teacher might be doing an excellent job teaching the material, but when the children are tested on it on a multiple choice test, sometimes they can't get out what they're trying to say. They can't get out with all of the information that they've learned because that's not how they know to get across that information. So merit-based pay would be a wonderful idea if we could get new strategies, new ways of assessment.
That makes sense.
I guess.
Do you have a different opinion?
Well, I'm pretty, and I guess she brought up the reasons I'm against it. I think you can't, some kids just aren't good at taking tests.
Exactly.
And so to punish the teacher for that is not fair. Teacher may be doing a wonderful job, but it just may be that the students can't take the test very well.
Mm-hmm.
Not to interrupt you, but a big thing in addition to the children not being able to perform well is children in low socioeconomic status. Their parents might not have the time to devote to them. They might be reading at a later age because their parents don't have time to, sit with them every single night and read. They might be, doing more jobs or, doing other things. And so if they're reading at a later age or if they're, behind in math and whatnot, it's going to make a difference on their high stakes testing. And so therefore, it's going to make an unfair difference to the teacher because if it's merit-based pay, your class is going to perform lower and there's really nothing you can do. You can devote as much time as you can, but it's still not enough.
So, most of the issues we're talking about surround public schools. Recently, there's been a large push towards private schools, specifically charter schools. Is that the route we should be taking, or do you think we should really still be trying to invest in the public school system and building the public school system?
There is a huge push towards charter schools right now. There's a lot of funding going towards charter schools, and people are concerned that all of that money has been taken away from private or from public schools. That's not necessarily the case. Is the push towards charter private schools a good one? Well, in scores, yes, it is. The scores are statistically higher. However, if we put that money that's going into charter schools and we put those teachers that are going into charter schools and their creative ideas into the public schools, would it work? And that's a main concern that people have right now. I'm on the fence. I don't know. I've never been into a charter or a private school. I hope in my teaching career to get experience in both. And because private schools, charter schools in particular, can be a great thing. It can be really good for children. It's supposed to be a really positive and creative experience. It embraces a lot of things that are very important to me. And so, if it works, we should give it a try.